Some nurses believe that only nurses who work in mental health need to know how to conduct mental status exams, but this is patently false. The truth is that physical ailments often accompany mental ailments, and mental health patients can therefore be found in any type of healthcare setting. There's a very easy acronym that you can use to remember how to conduct a thorough mental status exam, so make sure you keep watching to find out what it is. Hey, what's up guys? Thank you so much for joining me today. I want to teach you guys a very simple acronym that you can use to remember all the aspects of a mental status exam. This acronym is ABS-CAT.
What the hell is ABS-CAT?
ABS-CAT stands for Appearance, Behavior, Speech, Cognition, Affect and Mood, Thought Content, and Thought Process. When assessing appearance, you want to consider whether or not the person looks like their stated age, their gender, their race, distinguishing markings, as well as whether or not they've attended to hygiene and are dressed appropriately. So if you see a dude rocking a scarf, mitts, sweater, and a jacket in the middle of summer, then you know that something is up. When assessing behavior, you want to consider whether or not the person is settled, restless, whether they're fidgeting, whether they look nervous, their eye contact, as well as their degree of impulsivity and their general attitude towards you as the interviewer. S is for speech. When assessing a patient's speech, you want to consider cadence, rhythm, articulation, whether or not their speech is spontaneous, as well as their speech volume. Moving on to the C. This is for cognition. Cognition can be assessed by observing whether or not the person is orientated to time, person, and place, their reading and writing skills, their memory retention skills, as well as their ability to engage in abstract thinking. Now, it's critically important to remember that under the C, we also have judgment and insight. Judgment refers to whether or not the person makes healthy choices as it pertains to their lives and their illness. So this can be assessed by whether or not the person shows up on time for their appointments, whether or not they comply with their medication regime, whether or not they are making positive lifestyle changes that will benefit their health. Insight refers to the patient's level of understanding as it pertains to their illness. So this can be assessed by asking questions such as, what brought you into the hospital? Or how does your illness impact your life? Or what are some areas that you have room for growth in order to be able to recover and to be discharged? Honest answers around these questions mean that your patient has a good level of insight. Both insight and judgment can be graded on a scale from absent to poor to partial to fair to good. Moving on to the A, we've got affect and mood. Affect refers to how the patient presents to you as the interviewer. Words that you can use to describe a patient's affect include euthymic, bright, sad or downcast, depressed, irritable, angry. Two other affective states are blunted and flat, and people often confuse the two. Blunted affect refers to subdued intensity as it pertains to displaying emotion. Flat affect refers to a consistently low display of emotion regardless of the situation. Mood refers to what the patient is reporting to you as the interviewer as it pertains to how they are feeling. And rating scales are often used to qualify how they are feeling. Personally, I like to do it like this. On a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being bleh, and 10 being hooray, how would you say you're feeling today? Lastly, you want to assess whether or not the patient's stated mood is congruent with their observed affect. If they're laughing and smiling while talking about how their parents just died in a horrible accident, then you know that something is up and that you need to assess a little bit more. Moving on to the first T in APS-CAT, we've got thought content and perception also falls under this as well. When assessing a patient's thought content, you want to ensure that you check for suicidal, homicidal, or self-harm ideation, and it is critically important that you ask these questions directly. So how you want to go about asking them is by being straight and asking them if they have any thoughts of harming or killing themselves or others. It's really important to do this directly because this is how you're going to elicit the most honest responses. If you try to tiptoe around the subject, then that provides the patient with an opportunity to give you an untruthful answer. A lot of people feel that if you ask these questions directly, it'll give them the idea if they didn't already have it. But this is patently false. Research has clearly demonstrated that asking these questions directly will not cause patients to experience suicidal ideation if they were not already experiencing it. If you ask a patient if they're experiencing suicidal ideation and they say yes, it is critically important that you conduct a suicide risk assessment, and I'll be covering how to do this in my next video. You'll also want to assess for recurrent themes, phobias, compulsions, obsessions, delusions of grandeur, ideas of reference, and hallucinations.
Why, hello there, Mr. Cheshire Cat. How are you?
And lastly, thought process. Thought process will commonly need to be tested formally, but there are a couple things that you can look for to know whether or not their thought process is intact. You can assess directness of responses, flow of information, flow of speech, whether or not they're perseverating on certain topics or ideas, as well as their use of vocabulary. Words that you can use to describe a patient's thought process include goal-oriented, tangential, which is the inability to remain on one topic of conversation in response to a new stimuli. Flight of ideas, which is rapidly shifting from one topic of conversation to another. Loose association is when a patient refers to several unrelated topics of conversation in a very short amount of time. Memorizing this acronym will ensure that you don't miss anything that you need to assess for when you are conducting a mental status exam. Lastly, it is critically important to understand that conducting a thorough and effective mental status exam requires that you first build rapport and develop therapeutic relationships with your patients. If you haven't seen my video on how to do this, make sure you click the link that'll be at the top left of your screen at the end of this video. Someone once said, "Be the kind of person that, wherever you are or wherever you go, you add value to the lives of those around you." Never forget that you, yes, you are a kind, wonderful, intelligent individual who has the privilege of being able to add immense value to the lives of your patients and their families. Thanks for watching today's video, guys. Always remember, if you want to be the best nurse that you can be tomorrow, then you need to be the best learner that you can be today. So make sure you stay tuned, like this video, subscribe to my channel, and share with your friends because I've got tons more tasty treats coming your way and you don't want to miss them. I look forward to showing you guys what you need to learn today and how you can learn it so that you can lead tomorrow. Peace!